All right, that's the fun stuff. This isn't. The suspected gunman accused of live streaming a deadly shooting spree in Memphis is in police custody this morning after a day-long manhunt.
This video is brought to you by The Officer Tatum Store. The Officer Tatum Store. Get the merch link in the description section. Ladies and gentlemen, the Don hoodies are out. We've never had the Don in hoodies. So now that we got the hoodies, you make sure you get them. Use discount code Adam2024. Use Adam2024. You'll get 20% off. These hats are coming in as well. Jesus is Lord in the red and black. Ladies and gentlemen, we got so much cool merch. Y'all better get these. Y'all better click notify me when made available to get some of these, because as soon as we launch, they gonna be gone. These are the best hats that we've ever had on our website. Like and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notifications anytime I go live and make a video. Make sure you still subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Let's get into this. I have to talk about this situation that occurred last night. It was breaking. I went on to Laura Ingram's show on Fox News to give commentary on this Memphis guy that literally lost his mind on live stream. I saw the videos. They were absolutely horrific. This guy was going up to random people with a fully automatic handgun, shooting them, coercing them, or I would say trying to convince them for help, acting as if he, needed assistance, luring them in, ultimately shooting and killing 4 people, injuring 3 other individuals. The motive behind this man's evil intent or evil actions is unknown. However, we know a few things that are for sure. One is that he was let out of prison. He was let out of jail earlier than he should have. In the year 2020, I believe he was sentenced, or he was charged with attempted first-degree murder, aggravated assault, amongst other felonious crimes. And for some reason, I don't know if it was because he was 17 at the time or because he was black, for some reason, they found that it made sense for him to plead guilty, only be charged with aggravated assault, and be sentenced to 3 years to then only do 11 months out of 3 years. This guy is clearly a violent person in society that should be locked up. There's a time and a place to let people out of prison, and violent, crazed criminals are not in that position to be let out of prison or given a pat on the back of the head and tell them to go change your ways. I'll give you an example. My cousin has been in prison for over 20 years now. He was sentenced to 75 years in prison. When I looked at his charges, I said, okay, I can see how that happened. Being a prohibited possessor, being in possession of a firearm, end up shooting, I believe, 2 or 3 people, in possession of a dangerous drugs at the time of this incident. He was sentenced to 75 years in prison. Was that too steep? I don't know. But I know that he had committed crimes in the past, and that sentencing him to prison after shooting people wasn't bizarre to me. However, 20 years later, I've talked to my cousin. I've kept in contact with him. I believe he's a good person. He just lost his temper that day in a conflict that went south. He's told me how he's been able to get his GED. He's been able to get an education, build a trade, complete a Christian-based curriculum. All of the above to re-enter into society, he's been able to accomplish. He's now eligible for parole. I'm going to write a letter to suggest that he should be able to enter into society based on him paroling out. But this guy, this wasn't a conflict. This wasn't an altercation gone bad. And I'll say my cousin it wasn't just he ran up and shot people. It was that he got into a conflict with a few guys, and he just so happened to have a gun, and he, decided to shoot instead of throw fists. But this person right here, 17-year-old man, attempted first-degree murder. In order for you to get charged with attempted first-degree murder, that means you premeditated a murder. It wasn't an act of heat of passion. It wasn't a conflict gone south. You planned to murder somebody and ended up they charged him with aggravated assault, which is probably he either pistol whipped somebody or he, injured them to a substantial amount. Therefore, you get the charge of aggravated assault. And he only do 11 months in jail? Only 11 months in jail? And clearly he's deranged. Clearly he has mental illness because he's out literally shooting and killing people all over the city. They believe that the incident started around 4 p.m. in Memphis, where he began to live stream. Looked like he went into an auto zone and randomly pointed a gun and shot a man. Then it goes on to about 4:36. He shoots and kills a man inside of his car at 946 East Parkway South. Then he goes on, it appears to be a minute earlier than that. A woman is shot in the leg. Then you move on down the timeline to around, where are we at, 7. He carjacked a woman and fatally shot her. 7:24, which is a minute later, police respond to a shooting at a, I can't see this because the thing is bad. It's at the cross section of a street in Evergreen with the man taken to the hospital in non-critical condition. You go a couple minutes later, maybe about an hour later, police arrested him. I think you go a little bit before that, a woman was shot dead in the 800 block of Rains Street, and another man was injured. I said 4 p.m. You go back to 1 a.m. This is when they believe the first shooting started, was at 1 a.m. A 24-year-old man was shot and killed in his driveway. So he killed a man in the driveway. He goes off and kills a man who was in his car, lures a woman in, shoots her. He carjacked the woman, killed her. And there was another individual he killed. 4 people he killed. Now let's go into the nuance and the race factor. Because a man called in the other day and said, Brandon, you need to stop bringing up race. This is how we're going to ever end race. Well, the reason that we're never going to end this quote-unquote racism in our country is because when black people do something, nobody wants to talk about it. When it was breaking news on television, CNN and some of these other stations wouldn't even cover the breaking news. They wouldn't even cover it as breaking. Laura Ingraham had me come on her show to talk about it when it broke. And now that he's been arrested, they barely want to talk about it because he's a black man. If this was a white man running around indiscriminately shooting black people, and I don't know if all his victims were white, but at least the first few victims that we saw were white. If he was going around shooting people, just in general, white man shooting people for no reason, they will be crying on television right now saying white supremacy in this country is the biggest threat to our society. But when black people do it, they don't say anything. Why is that a problem, Mr. Tatum? Because they're pushing an agenda that focuses on white people, but they're not telling a balanced story that it's not just white people that are killing people. It's not just the white Ku Klux Klan member that they claim, proverbial Klan member, that's out here causing problems. It's also black people. In Memphis alone, I think this is the 3rd incident in Memphis. Major incident. You're talking to the lady that was jogging, the guy threw her in the van and murdered her in Memphis. Then you got also in Memphis, this guy going on a rampage, shooting and killing people indiscriminately, live streaming it. And then there was another situation where I think a guy forced entry into a woman's home. I think he even shot and killed her. I got to verify that situation, but why are we not talking about these things? We need to be addressing the fact that people are losing their minds and that it's not just about race, but people are losing their minds and their salvation. And I wish we would give a balanced perspective and talk about it, and we would blow these situations up just as much as we would if a police officer was involved. George Floyd gets gold caskets, and when everybody had to shut down and couldn't even go to their own family member's funeral, they had celebrities and everybody at George Floyd's funeral. Which one you think was worse? Which one you think was worse? You tell me. One police officer kneeling on a crackhead who was probably on his way down a drain with methamphetamine and crack cocaine ingestion. He ingested a lethal amount. No, it's fentanyl. He had fentanyl in his system. He had ingested a fatal amount of fentanyl, which if the cop didn't kill him, he was probably going to die subsequently. Now, I'm not saying he deserved to die, that the cop deserved to go to prison. However, the world burned because of that incident. And you now have a man who literally was going up to random people and shooting and killing them. And nobody's outraged about this. I mean, except the people on the right, right? Nobody's outraged about this. Nobody wants to get into a deeper conversation. We're not going to have a congressional hearing about this, where Congress is going to have a conversation about what's happening to young black men in America. The violence that come from inner city communities, from young black men just like this guy. The other guy did 20 years for kidnapping somebody. He gets out of prison and he go and kill his woman. Young black men are committing over half of all the murders in the country. Are we not going to address this? Are we not? When I was on Laura Ingraham, are we not going to talk about fatherless homes that are contributing factors? Hold the phone. I'll be back after the break. But this young man, he was 17. He's 19 today, going and committing mass murders. But the problem is, like I say all the time, when are we going to address these things? When are we going to address that there's a problem with inner city young men growing up without a daddy committing crazy amounts of crime, murder, and destruction? Can we talk about that? They want to have a hearing on white supremacy and systemic racism in our country, white nationalists. Show me the numbers of white nationalists leading disproportionately in murder. Show it to me. Show it to me. Over half of the murders are perpetuated by black men. Over half. Black men make up a substantially small portion of the population, but they're involved in murder. That's not even speaking of violent crimes. Over half of all violent crimes are perpetuated by young black men. Show me somewhere in the country where there's a white Chicago or a Mexican Chicago or I don't know, Native American Chicago. Show me where there are people doing drive-by shootings, dead bodies laying in the streets. Just this last Labor Day, they had 11 homicides and I don't know, 50-something shootings. Where did this boy get this gun at? Because last time I checked, he's 19. He's 19 years old. He's already been convicted of a felony crime at 17. He's a prohibited possessor. He's 19. He cannot own a handgun. And then, listening to the shots on the camera, the handgun was fully automatic, which is illegal. And I bet the gun was stolen. And you know what? He's doing a killing spree in a stolen car. There's so much to talk about. But when are we going to address these issues? I'm totally fine looking into why a young kid goes into a school and murders people. I'm totally into looking into that and finding a resolution for it. But nobody wants to talk about young black men in the country and the violence that's occurring. Nobody wants to talk about it. We just had 2 examples of young black men committing some of the most heinous violent crimes that we've seen in the last couple years. We're not going to even talk about smash and grabs. We're not going to talk about none of that other stuff that goes on. And we're not going to even talk about the black on black violence, which is disproportionately higher than white on white violence. We're not going to, we just leave that alone. If you look at statistical data, black people kill white people twice as much as white people do to black people. Why are we not talking about these things? To me, it's one of 2 things. People either don't care or there's an agenda. I just wish that we cared about black people more than just lip service. There is an epidemic going on. And I argue that it's God and fathers that are missing out of the equation. There's God and there's fathers. Let me explain to you why this is a recipe for disaster. Because there's a connection here. There's a power source. You know how you take a plug and you plug it right into the outlet? and the power source from the generator, wherever you're getting the power electric from, comes through the socket, into the plug, and then into whatever device you have. That's the same type of connection. That's the same need for a power connection with us and God. Who's the head of Christ? God the Father is the head of Christ. Who's the head of the church? Jesus is the head of the church. The power goes from the Father to Jesus, and then Jesus to the man of the house. Who's the head of the family? The man. So it goes from God the Father to Jesus down to the man, down through the man to the family. Now, what happens when fathers are not there? There's a break in connection. That doesn't mean that you can't. That doesn't mean that the connection is completely unavailable. I think God can make a way, but a lot of people are living through a broken connection, and some people, they think it's okay. I don't need no man. Little Johnny don't need, his daddy ain't nothing anyway. He don't need a daddy. I'm all he need. You think you all he need. Have you asked him? Do you understand that he's crying at night because he missed his father? He's wondering why his daddy don't love him. And you are celebrating the fact that his daddy ain't there because you want to be the martyr. You want to be the only one in that kid's life, and you want him to only depend on you. It's cute while they little. But these young boys growing up without their fathers, for whatever reason, is causing a tremendous burden on society and the community. Why do you say that, Mr. Tatum? There's a correlation. There's a correlation. You look at the numbers and you say 70+% of young black children are born out of wedlock. Now, let me explain wedlock for a minute because some people are going to get mad if you're calling in. Hold the phone. Let me explain wedlock to you. Mama and daddy hooking up on the weekend and hanging out, there's no commitment to that. There's no visualization of mommy and daddy in the house in an express family connection. It's not there. So just because daddy show up every now and again don't mean that that's a family unit. And that's the difference between marriage, born out of wedlock, and born in wedlock. And we see 70+% of young men and women born out of wedlock. And we wonder why the crime rate is so high in the inner city. And white kids are at 25%, where black people used to be before the 60s. You see the influx in fatherlessness, and you see the influx in crime committing. These young boys are out here in the street with no hope, no guidance, being raised by single moms. And not every single mom is bad. I know some of y'all out here grinding, trying to do your thing. Do your thing. Pray God will help you. But some of them want to be single moms, and they're out here raising these criminals. I got more to talk about, y'all. I wish that I could just go for an hour straight. Y'all listen to the Officer Tatum Show. Hold the phone. I'll be back after the break.
This is the Officer Tatum Show. Unafraid to tell it like it is.